Thanks for joining us. I am Marlon Bowling with you, and we're going to take a look at what to expect in today's market action. Gosh, nothing to talk about today whatsoever, where we have a big USDA report coming up. And in fact, we have already got a few USDA numbers out just a little bit ago. Here's a quick look. Some of these export sales numbers less than stellar this week. Let's take a quick peek here on the corn, 785,600 tons. That was under all expectations. Soybeans only 632,600 tons. That was in the lower half of expectations. The soy meal, 90,300. That was below the range of estimates. Soy oil, 46,400 tons. Now that was toward the upper end. And the wheat, 83,400 tons. That looks like a misprint, under 100,000 tons. And it wasn't even a third of the lowest trade guess. That was a shocking surprise there. Here to talk about it, we have Rich Nelson on the line of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. He joins us. And Rich, boy, these numbers were kind of a huge disappointment right before this big major USDA set of report numbers comes out later on this morning.
You know, you would say that certainly for the soy meal as well as the wheat side. And one thing about the wheat issue is we're running towards the end of the marketing year, which ends on May 31st here. So there's not enough time to really make up any shortfall in sales as it stands for the wheat end. USDA's whole year goal is 925 million bushels there. And as it stands so far, current shipments at 771 million. Now, there's, of course, some unknown numbers in there, like donations, which are not included, but still, it's very clear we're going to have a little shortfall on the U.S. Wheat export side things here.
Wanted to kind of walk through some of these early pre-report estimates about the USDA crop production report and the supply and demand numbers. The crop production for the U.S. this year, there was a survey done of analysts around the country done by the Wall Street Journal. They're looking for corn production of 14.09 billion bushels, soybean production at 4.3 billion. Wanted to look at the U.S. ending stocks numbers. There's a couple sets of numbers that'll be coming out. One is for the old crop, and on that one, they are expecting corn to be 2.18 billion bushels, soybeans at 541 million, the wheat at 1.07 billion. And then for the new crop, the 2018 and 2019, they are looking at the corn at 1.63 billion bushels, soybeans 549 million, the wheat at 923 million. And I know that Allendale is included in that survey of those numbers. Where do you fit in there, Rich?
You know, as far as these numbers for the old crop discussion, we're very close to the average guesses here, 2.18, same story on the corn end. We're at 553 for the old crop numbers on soybeans and 1.085 for the old crop on wheat. Now, we certainly do agree with this tightening supply situation for corn. We're maybe at this 1.55 number here. And as far as soybeans, 512 million bushels. So for the most part, in agreement with most of the trade here.
Let's look at world ending stocks numbers. Excuse me. We are looking at corn at 195.2 million metric tons, soybeans 90 million, the wheat at 271.3. This is on old crop. On new crop, corn 182 million, soybeans 91.1, the wheat at 267.7. Where do you fit in there, Rich?
On the corn side, for new crop, we're actually just a little tighter than what the average trade guess is, 175.2 million tons. So we actually have a good drop in numbers on the world side for corn. Soybeans were at 91.1, so suggesting actually a slight increase there versus the current situation. And over on the wheat end of things here, 278.7, so might be a little larger than some people on the wheat end of things here.
Okay, and we'll cover more numbers as we go throughout the trading session today and get closer and closer to that report. I want to remind you on the overnight trade, the corn was just fractionally mixed, very flat overnight. On the soybeans, about 3 higher, and the wheat narrowly mixed too, so typically quite ahead of a big report. We'll come back in a moment and we'll examine what to expect in our livestock trade with Rich Nelson when we come back. We're back. We're talking with Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated, and we're going to talk about the livestock side. And on the export numbers that we talked about a short time ago, we also have an inclusion of beef and pork exports for last week. So according to USDA, let's take a look at what those numbers are. We had the beef coming in there at 11,300 tons last week, and that would be actually down 30% from the previous week. That's actually down 41% from the 4-week average. So kind of lackluster lackluster there on the beef side. On the pork, 16,500 tons. That was down 5% from the week ago levels and 21% from the 4-week average. Any surprise in those numbers there, Rich?
I think in general, these numbers on the beef side still showing what's been maybe the past 4 weeks averaged out, maybe a slightly disappointing tone of things here, slightly under last year. Over on the pork end of things here, same type of story, though we've had some good sales in the previous 2 weeks. This number, as well as the previous weeks, have maybe disappointed some people. So I think on this end, maybe a slightly disappointing tone here for both these ends here today.
On the beef side, looks like the biggest buyer would have been Japan, followed by Hong Kong and South Korea. On the pork side, it looks like the biggest buyer last week, Mexico. So they're still in the market, that's for sure. Japan, Canada, Hong Kong, and Colombia. They were the main buyers last week. Okay, on the livestock summary from yesterday, we did have a few more cash cattle trades reported by USDA. This time in Nebraska, they reported roughly about 2,300 head yesterday on a dressed basis, and the market seemed to really soften up again. 188 to 193 seemed to be the trading range yesterday. And on a live basis, we had some reported in Colorado, about 1,800 head there. Mainly about 119 to maybe 121 for the top end. What do you think of that trend that we're seeing in the cash cattle trade? It seems to really be kind of sliding away this week.
It certainly does, and maybe we've reached this point where this quote-unquote wall of cattle is now starting to kind of work through the system. So on these numbers, both of them are lower than last week's trade, and last week averaged 125 on a live end and about 193, 194 dressed out. So both sides disappointing. Looks like we could be starting this next move down in pricing that the trade's been talking about here.
On the beef cutout values yesterday, well, it looks like we had a split decision once again. And on the choice beef cutouts, we were actually a little bit firmer, 3 cents higher. Selects were down 98 cents. So again, looks like they're continuing to widen out that spread. Why is that?
I think the biggest issue is right now the length of time these cattle have been on feed, and often we do see some changes in the choice select spread at this time of year. As like I said, mainly main issues are the length of time these cattle have been on feed. A lot of these went in that September through November time frame, so they went in good conditions. They've been through all winter here, and now they certainly are putting on maybe a little changing issues as far as fat content here.
Are you a bull in the hog trade? When you look at a chart on the hogs, are you convinced that maybe we did post a low a while back? There was kind of a secondary low after that big spike low here a few weeks ago. Are you optimistic that maybe they can rally from here?
I'll be very clear with you. I'm a secret raging bull, actually, on the hog side.
A raging bull, okay.
Yes, I'm saying it very clearly. Last year, I don't think we're going to hit last year's $92, $93 price on the futures end for summer contracts, but we certainly do suggest that the next wave of lower supply, which now we're on our third leg of lower supply going into summer, should be one which tightens prices up a little more, which should be around maybe the end of the month, in our opinion.
Rich Nelson, the raging hog bull right now, and thanks for the update. I appreciate that, Rich. We'll talk with you again tomorrow. Rich Nelson of Allendale in McHenry, Illinois.